Hey guys, CJ Inferno here today, and today's video we'll be talking about Atelier Yumia, which is the latest game in the series and quite a different one in terms of how Atelier games usually are. Today I'll be going over my thoughts on the game after pretty much 100% in it, and whether or not you should buy the game or not. So the three main talking points will be the story, the gameplay, and the improvements, and then also give my final thoughts at the end. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So, the story. Atelier Yumia's story is definitely different from previous entries. So mainly in previous entries, alchemy was basically not frowned upon. Everyone loves it. You know, everyone's fine with it. You know, everyone's intrigued with it. But in this game, it's pretty much a taboo. No one likes it. If you've been caught doing it, obviously you get shunned and all other stuff that happened. So yeah, it's on the more darker side to most games. Not too dark, but it's definitely not all like happy and sunshines and everything there pretty much. Now in terms of the overall story itself, I won't like explain everything too much, but essentially Yumia has been tasked to go with the research team to essentially see like what is happening in the world with like all these mana bounds and everything as well. Obviously you meet new characters, meet your adversaries as well. You get some insights to like what happened to the previous civilizations and like why they've been wiped out and all that stuff. I won't dive too much detail into it. Obviously I just want people to like experience it themselves, but for the most part the story probably not the most interesting one, I would say. Now obviously I played a fair amount of Atelier games, not all of them, but a fair amount. I enjoyed Rises 1 a bit more, like the whole trilogy. Probably not number 1 as much, but number 2 and 3 definitely improved. Sophie I actually enjoy. I think that's like one of my favorite ones out of all of them so far. That one I really enjoyed, especially number 2. Now this one, Yumia, is okay, but you know, I felt parts of the story like it dragged on way too long, especially at the start. It's a very slow start. Obviously there are some parts of the story that do get better, but for the most part I think you're gonna just be like trudging along, and I know some people be like, bro, this is too slow for me, you know, and then they might even drop the game. But yeah, for the most part the story is not the worst, but it's definitely not the best either. Now in terms of side content, you have a thing called Pioneer Questing, which is like its own story, kind of, more or less. It's like in the 4 regions that you have in the game, you'll be tasked to do like some pioneering tasks, like making certain objects, going to a certain destination, defeat a certain amount of enemies of this character. Like there's a lot of stuff that you're doing each region, and that quest line itself was pretty interesting for what it is. You know, it wasn't too serious, wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it for the most part. Funny enough, I was probably a bit more interested in that than the main story for like half the game, which it's kind of bad to say. Sorry. Yeah, it's kind of bad to say, but yeah, I was more interested in that for the most part until like I'll say midway through to the game. That in itself is pretty fun to do. If you can do it, I would recommend doing it. Now as for like actual side quests, like most JRPGs and everything that is in the game, I'll be honest, they're just your typical standard side quest. Go here, fetch this item, make this item, or go and beat a certain enemy or something, deliver some items. Yeah, it's typical, you know. Obviously they give you some good stuff. Some of them give you some recipes, some give you SP so you can use it for your skill tree and all other stuff as well, some items as well. Sometimes they're a bit helpful, but for the most part, I mean, they're just there for you to just do to like collect stuff pretty much. So if you're really not interested in it, you don't have to do it. But ideally, I think when it comes to these games, if they're doing like side quests, I think they should do quality over quantity, because the whole thing of just fetching is long overdue, man. It's not long overdue, sorry, but like, just done. It's pretty much done, like at this point in the day and age. Like I'll say try and make it a bit more interesting, a bit more engaging. But yeah, you also have character side quests as well, just to get an insight to like how the characters are, a bit more info on them, their past and everything as well. That in itself was pretty good for the most part. Obviously some of them are a bit, you know, boring, but you know, not everything in life is going to be interesting. But for the most part, I did enjoy what they'd done with the characters. You didn't have too many characters to deal with in this game as well, which is quite nice. You have what, a team of 6 more or less, which is more than fine in this day and age, because we all know some games of Cough Trails where you have a bunch of team members, which just does not help sometimes. Now, in terms of the open world, for Yumia, this is something new for the series. So most times in the series, you're basically going from town to town, area to area, dungeon to dungeon. You know, you have your set map and that's pretty much it. Now, Yumia, literally everything is more or less connected. So all the regions are connected. You can go from A region to the last region, all the way back to B region to C region, pretty much. You don't have no towns. You don't have no shopping to do. You don't have like money to carry in this one. So there's a bit of a different style that they've done. For the most part, I enjoyed the open world aspects of it. Obviously, some parts could be improved. For one, if there was a completion counter for like each map you've done to say, oh, how many tests you've gained or what items you're missing, just to like make it easier for people that want to do 100%, mainly because there are things in the game where you need to actually like go and scout, which is good to do in this game. Like the game rewards you for exploring, but when you've pretty much explored everywhere and say you need one item, which was my case, I needed a treasure trove key, I essentially had to look from the start, literally go all the other places just to double check to see if I missed anything or I missed anything underground or something. And yeah, it took quite a bit. I did finally find it, but my god, I said, oh, never again, man, never ever again. So that is probably my only well, not really my only complaint. I'll say my second complaint is the map itself. So when you have stuff that are like underground, that in itself is a bit awkward, and I would say awkward to navigate, but like the map in itself, it don't really help too much. And then say, for example, you want to look where this place is, unless you have, you know, taking a screenshot to know where it is, 9 times out of 10 you might even just forget where it is. And then if you needed to go back, then you're like, crap, where do I even go back to that same place, you know? So in that department, they could have probably improved as well. But yeah, in terms of the story and everything itself, yeah, it was okay, but definitely not the greatest. I think they could improve on that as well. So if they do decide to do a second one, which I don't think they would do, because the way the game ended, well, you never know anyway. But yeah, maybe they can take that into consideration. Now, in terms of gameplay, Yumia is essentially action-based. There's no turn-based in this one, so yeah, I know people will probably be a bit pissed off with that, but for me, I think this series, it can easily do both. You know, one might be action, one might be what, turn-based another times. They seem to know how to do it quite well, or make it, you know, pretty interesting for the most part. This one, now in terms of like the actual gameplay style, you have like a set of certain moves that you can use. Some characters have more when you're in the inner range, some have more when you're on the outer range, so that can kind of give you an idea of like where they should be at all times. But yeah, in terms of like difficulty, the game wasn't too hard. It was actually pretty on the easiest side for the most part. Now, bearing in mind, I did start on normal at first because I was like, you know, I'm just gonna go for a chill time. But after a while, I was like, okay, this is a bit too easy, and I was like, let me bump it up to hard. Done that, the game still wasn't as hard. It's like, okay, yeah, the enemies have more HP, but that's minor pretty much. I went to very hard for a bit, and even then it still wasn't like tedious as well, but you know, the enemy HP was starting to show, and I was like, okay, bro, that's a tiny bit much for some of these mobs. But in overall, difficulty-wise, it's not too bad. I think if you played Atelier games before, you pretty much know what you're getting into. You know all the stuff you need to do, all the stuff that you can make, and then you'll be good to go. Now, in terms of alchemy in itself, in this game, it more or less works how many other games do, although when you do actually start to do alchemy, you'll probably be a bit confused on like what the hell is going on, because you've got so much stuff to like keep an eye on, which is what allows everyone to like min-max, you know, in-game items and stuff. For me personally, I didn't min-max at all. I literally just set the thing to auto synthesis, and I was like, prioritize the effect, and it just gave me like the best of the best that it could have at the time, you know. Now, in terms of like learning like new recipes and stuff, you'll get these from like collecting items in the world or fishing them as well. Some of them are tied to fishing as well. You also have a thing called simple synthesis. So in this one, simple synthesis is like you make bullets for your gun, or gun/stuff I should say. You can make bandages to like heal yourself on the field. You can make a camping kit, ingredients, items to feed dogs. Like there's quite a few items that you can get. Obviously you get some of these stuff later down the line, but yeah, you have two types of synthesis in the game, but the main synthesis, or alchemy I should say, that one I felt for the most part it was okay, but like in terms of like upgrading items that you have, you needed to collect these particles, which was quite annoying for the most part. I knew there were certain areas where I could farm it easily, but like it was luck of the draw of which ones I needed, and there was a point where I had like no fire ones, and I'm like, bro, I'm getting no drops for it, and I'm like, where is it coming from? And then another day I come back to it and I'm just getting the fire drop straight away. So it just seems a bit random. I kind of wish it was like set in a place where, okay, this region you get, you know, X amount from this one, this region you get an X amount from this one, and so on and so forth. That would have probably been better for the most part. But yeah, I think once the max level is 10, but honestly, if you reach like 5 to 7, that is more than enough, because if you do the auto synthesis with like prioritized effects, you'll most likely get everything that you needed. Obviously, if you want the best of the best, you'll need to max it, but as I was saying earlier, like difficulty wise, once you reach that part of like leveling up the items that you wanted, yeah, you're pretty much good to go throughout the rest of the game. And I say this because I got like items from the third region, like weapons and stuff, and I was still using them like by the end of the game. So yeah, it didn't really matter too much, but it does help quite a bit. But in general, alchemy is pretty good in this game for the most part. Now, in terms of EXP scaling, this is like where I had probably like one of my concerns of the game, is that you get too much XP, which is weird to say. Now, obviously, if you're just gunning for the story, you'll probably be a bit under leveled for like most of the part. However, because I was doing 100%, by the time I left the first region, I was like level 44, level 45. And in my head, I was like, that should not be right. You know, I should be like 20 or 30 at most. I'm there already almost pushing 50. And I was like, something's not right. And then I went to the second region. By the time I finished that and everything in it, I was like level 75. And I was like, bro, this is like end game level already right now. Third region, I hit level 100 before I even finished it. And I was like, what's happening, you know? So yeah, obviously you have skills that can increase your XP, and without going for 100%, I'm literally buying all the skill stuff from the skill tree and everything. But even that, I said maybe they've been giving it a bit too much, because certain enemies near the end of the game, like I think like second, third region, they were dropping like 15, 20k after you beat them, and I was like, that's a bit too much, honestly. And I wasn't using like no food buffs or anything as well. So it's a weird one. I think in that department they fucked up more or less, because it made the game, I wouldn't even say easier, because you can still be max level and you can still get decked in by like certain enemies if you don't have like proper gear, but it definitely made stuff slightly easier during the game. So yeah, if they when they're doing the next one, I would tell them to at least consider, you know, fixing up the exp scaling on the characters and stuff. But yeah, now in terms of characters themselves, for the most part, they're pretty much fun to play. Although for me in this playthrough, I literally just used Yumia for like the whole game, unless I really needed to change for like, say, a pioneer quest requirement or something. Obviously she's pretty much like your go-to. She's like, you know, very versatile. She has good, very, very good moves and stuff. Other characters, they excel in certain areas better than her, but for the most part, you know, characters can do well in themselves. I didn't really need to change anything from the AI for the characters. They literally knew what to do. They knew how to use the items on time, know how to heal themselves sometimes. The only issue for them is that when it comes to like dodging and perfect guarding, they rarely done it. And I think during near the end of the game, like one boss, he just started to like one-shot people. I was like, okay, clearly there needs to be some work with some of the AI. Obviously, I don't want them to be like, you know, pitch perfect where they can just dodge everything on the ones, but they should have some sort of sense to like dodge or block or something, you know. So that's probably like one of my other issues in terms of the gameplay. But overall, gameplay wise, yeah, it was actually pretty fun. Now, had they done this turn-based, I still think it would have been fun, but it being action just allows everything to flow through easily. And how even when you finish a battle, you literally just go straight back to the world map where you are. Obviously, it depends. Sometimes they might spawn you in a certain place depending on when the enemy hits you or something, or like triggers the fight. But for the most part, you know, everything's pretty much seamless. Now, with all that said and done, I'm gonna give my final thoughts on the game. So, for Yumia, honestly, I would say it's a good game to sink some hours into. But for the story, you probably wouldn't pay too much attention to it, or you wouldn't even care as much until like you reach certain points. In terms of like meeting adversaries and stuff, you meet them once in a while, face them once in a while, and that's pretty much it. A lot of the dialogue, sometimes I won't even say it makes sense, but like it's sometimes it was so boring. I'm like, bro, they added a bit too much in certain areas. But yeah, gameplay wise, everything's pretty good on that part. Difficulty wise, that definitely needs tuning if they ever like want to patch the game or do it when the next game is out. Music wise, obviously I didn't really talk about it, but music was okay. Some of the tracks were okay, but you know, I mean, even when I was exploring the world, I barely heard the music sometimes. It was like very, obviously I don't expect it to be all happy like previous games, but at least expect some oomph from some of the songs. But that wasn't the case for all of them. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. Now, to say if I recommend it to everyone, honestly, I probably would recommend it, but I would say wait for a sale if you can. This game is quite expensive from what I last checked. Obviously, if you're a big fan of everything, you're probably already got pre-ordered or on the way or something, or ready to buy when you can. But for the other people who are not too sure, honestly, I'd say wait for a sale. It's not a bad game. It's a pretty good game overall. If anything, I'll probably give it a 7 out of 10. However, there is some fair amount of improvements that they do need to do or think about for like their next title and stuff. But before I end it off, in terms of the PC version itself, I thought I should probably add this in earlier, but I'll talk about it now. For the most part, it works well. Usually when it comes to games done by Gust, I've never really had an issue with them. They usually work from start to finish. However, with Yumia, as of recording today on 13th of March, I basically am soft locked at the end of the game. I can beat the final boss and a cutscene plays, and then once a loading screen comes, that's it. It just freezes up, and it's happened like 3-4 times now. So I'm waiting for them to patch it so I can actually see the ending of the game. But as of this moment, I cannot do that right now. And also to add, my game actually crashed, I think like 4-5 times in total throughout my whole playthrough. So that's like within 52, 53 hours of me playing, which is not bad, you know. It can obviously happen here and there PC games, but compared to other Gust games that I've played in the past, yeah, this has been a first for me on PC, and it's actually made me consider, should I start requesting stuff on console now to just have it on the safe side. But yeah, I think they should be working on it. Hopefully they do finish it off before release next week. But yeah, that is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this review / impression / me just rambling on about my experience with the game. If you got any questions about the game, do let me know in the comments below. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next review.